Hello, my name is Scott Davis. Welcome to New World Birth. This is the weekly neutrino forecast for August 16th to August 22nd of 2015. And on August 16th, we've got the sun. You can see it denoted right here by this black circle with a dot in it. It's in Leo. It's also in the fourth hexagram. And on the outside of the wheel, we see the chop mark for the fourth hexagram, numbered from bottom to top. The four goes yin, yang, yin, 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 yang. And then the fourth hexagram is mapped to an opening in an energy channel called a gate. And right here, this is the fourth gate of formulization, youthful folly, the energy to beguile and succeed despite ignorance, freedom from retribution, located in the Ajna Center in a collective logic energy path in the understanding circuit called the channel of logic, a design of mental ease mixed with doubt that connects to its harmonic, the 63rd gate of doubt after completion in the spiral of life. All ends are beginnings. And I found human design to be amazingly accurate in describing the person that I use it as my primary tool when I provide readings. And we've got the following activated gates on August 16th. We've got the sun in the fourth gate with the earth in the 49th gate. The north node is in the 46th gate with the south node in the 25th gate. Mercury is in the 64th gate, and Venus is retrograde and in the fourth gate along with the sun. Mars is in the 31st gate. Jupiter is in the 59th gate. Saturn is in the 14th gate. Uranus is retrograde in the 51st gate. Neptune is retrograde in the 37th gate, and Pluto is retrograde in the 38th gate. So obviously not every gate activation forms a channel, but this information can be very helpful if you know your own human design chart, because some of these transits will form channels with potentials in your personal body graph. And the neutrino forecast is really just a weather report. No matter what the weather, your individual strategy and authority is the correct choice to have an authentic experience regardless of the program. As Ra Uru said, whatever the weather's going to be, you have your neutrino umbrella. As long as you're experimenting with your strategy and authority, the weather is for your pleasure. And as we begin the week, we've got one channel definition due to the transit field. With the south node in the 25 and Uranus in the 51, we've got the channel of initiation, a design of needing to be first until November 29th, where we might experience some sort of leap into the unknown. And you can see this being played out in news events all over the world. And this is going to be with us until almost the end of November. So this is a very long-term transit that's affecting everybody on the planet. This is an individual channel that empowers through the courage to take a chance on something unknown and deal with the consequences afterwards. Obviously, following your strategy and authority will help you determine if this initiation is correct for you, or if faced with multiple possibilities to experience a quantum shift, which ones, if any, are correct for you. In the mundane world, we're likely to see people become more competitive, pushing the boundaries, getting outside of their comfort zone, which will be shocking to themselves and others as they feel the wonder of their own unique spirit. If you experience people acting unpredictable during this time period, recognize that this is a conditioning force that will eventually move on. But this could seem like folks are less in balance while experiencing this foreign energetic. And with the defined ego center, and only 30% of folks have a defined ego center. For the people without the defined heart center, they may feel like they've got something to prove and make promises or commitments that are not correct for you, and then correct for them. Sorry, and then the defined G center could affect folks without to obsess about where they're headed, where they're going to find love, and this is also individual circuitry. So it brings melancholy or blue feelings that are best used in some type of creative activity. And because Uranus is turned retrograde on July 26th in the sixth line of the 51, this channel of shock initiation is going to be defined the entire time that the nodes are in the 46-25 axis. So we're going to be looking at the sun's Ravi-Ching line values daily because 70% of the neutrinos we receive come from the sun. And as Ra said in his presentation called Living with the Program, The Lines of the Day, when he talked about these daily shifts of line values, he said we can always take advantage of the themes of the day. Now, if your strategy and authority doesn't lead you in that direction, you can always notice how the program's affecting others in your environment. So let's get started. On August 16th, we begin with the sun in the fifth line, the heretical line of the fourth hexagram. The sun in the 4-5 is seduction, allowing others to assume responsibility as a shield against potential punishment. Exalted, unearned rewards and recognition. The potential to succeed through the understanding of others. Detrimented, a life of lip service to antiquated and unsatisfactory values. Cynicism, the potential for cynicism that comes with always having to acknowledge the understanding of others. Fifth line days, as I've said in the past, this is about projection, so it brings suspicion, universalization, also paranoia is associated with it, although we've talked about if they're out to get you, then it's really not paranoia, and seduction being fifth line themes. But then later on the 16th, the sun then moves into the sixth line. So the role model line of the fourth hexagram, excuse me, and this shift happens at 2:06 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. The sun in the 4-6 is excess. Repeated and conscious abuse of norms will not escape discipline. Exalted, the development through experience of techniques to apply self-restraint. The potential in a logical process to recognize when the understanding is not complete and have the patience to wait out the process. Detrimented, the gall to accept punishment as the price of excess. Despite recognizing the incompleteness, a lack of patience with the process. Sixth line days, I've talked about being on the roof of the hexagram, that when we're on the roof of a building, we tend to look at what else is going on around the building, not necessarily the building itself, what's going on in the neighborhood, what's down the road, what's on the horizon, things like that. Ra talked about not getting stuck with your head in the clouds because you'll end up with something banging into your kneecaps. So it's basically a day where there's a lack of focus on what's going on around you because folks are looking beyond their immediate environment. And then on the 17th, we have the sun moving from the fourth hexagram. It leaves Venus behind, but it moves into the 29. Sorry, I had a little brain cramp there for a second. And the sun in the 29 completes this channel that we've seen over the last few weeks. And also with this, the Earth moves out of the 49 and it moves into the 30. So, all right. So we've got the Earth in the 30th gate of the recognition of feelings, the clinging fire, freedom recognized as an illusion, limitation accepted as fate. And this shift happens at 1:30 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time with the sun in the 29th gate of saying yes, the abysmal, the deep within the deep, the persistence despite difficulties has inevitable rewards. The sun in the first line, the investigator line of the 29, is the draftee, the ability to adapt, to struggle when necessary, but not as a permanent state. Exalted, the innate nature to apply energy in times of war and peace. The power to persevere when necessary, but not generally. Detrimented, a deep impressionability whose mark from times of struggle may make a return to normal conditions extremely difficult. hesitation in making commitments based on past experiences. And so we're in a new hexagram, and first, second, third lines, the lower trigram in the hexagram structure, is about people looking more inward, more absorbed in their own process. The theme of the first line, Dave, the investigative line, is that there's a fear or there's an anxiety that needs to be investigated. It's a day to study, not to act. It's a day to look into things, not to jump. It's a good day to deal with things you don't understand, can't make sense of, or don't know. And then with the sun in the 29 and the north node in the 46, we've got the channel of discovery, which is a design of succeeding where others fail and failing where others succeed, which will be with us until August 23rd, bringing the energy that if we make a commitment to something, we have to abandon ourselves to it during most of this week. It's through our experiences that we realize that there's no such thing as failure or success, only continual discovery. This is about being in the now and the experiences of being alive. The defined G center we talked about earlier could influence folks to be, wondering where they're headed or where they'll find love. The defined sacral center affects non-generator types in feeling busy and having the endurance to work. Obviously, don't get used to it. They may think they know when enough is enough, which could lead to the premature or abrupt ending of something that really needs more time. And then on the 18th, the sun then moves into the second line, so leaving the investigator line, moving into the hermit line of the 29 at 12:53 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. The sun is exalted in the 29 too, and is described as assessment, persistence tempered by caution, exalted, the power of sustainment as a guiding light, saying yes, and the power to persevere. Second line days, everyone's waiting for something. They're waiting to be called, particularly called for natural talents that they possess. People might be stuck in their own trip, lower trigram, but it's not a great day to have a party because people would rather stay home under that influence of the hermit. And then also on the 18th, Mercury moves out of the 64 and into the 47. And in mythology, Mercury is the messenger of the gods. It's communication, expansion of human consciousness through communication, not just words, but also as music, according to Ra. And what do you need to communicate in life? Well, we communicate the message of our design Mercury through the medium of our personality Mercury. And what might be communicated with Mercury in the 47. I'd expect to hear people talk about having oppressive experiences. This is a gate of realizing oppression, a restrictive and adverse state as a result of internal weakness or external strength, or both. And Mercury is in the first line of the 47, which is taking stock, exalted the ability in times of hardship to concentrating on eradicating the negative factors that have led to oppression, realizing that negative thoughts have to be eradicated, detrimented the delusion of seeing oppression as an exclusively external phenomena with disastrous results, the sense that the world is against you. And then on the 19th, the sun then moves up into the third line, so leaving the hermit line, moving into the martyr line of the 29 at 12:16 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. The sun in the 29-3 is evaluation. In this context, properly assessed inaction, exalted, despite the urge and the cost of inaction, the knowledge that it is sometimes better to fight another day, the power to wait, detrimented, a preference for withdrawal in principle with little regard for effect. the ability to make commitments, the inability to make commitments, the power of caution. Third line days in the line of the martyr, we're talking about trial and error process, bonds made and broken, a system of discovery by figuring out what doesn't work. Things bump into us with that third line energy. So it's a day to be careful on the roads, be careful swinging doors, swinging elbows. We might have bonds made and broken, trial and error process. It's also a good material day. It's a good day to do business and work on the material plane, but you still need to be careful because things can go wrong. But ultimately, those things may lead to some sort of discovery. And then on the 20th, the sun then moves into the fourth line. So leaving the martyr line, moving into the opportunist line of the 29th hexagram at 11:39 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time. The sun in the 29-4 is described as directness. The shortest distance between 2 points is a straight line. Exalted the wisdom to use the simplest and most direct approach to solve difficulties. The power to commit oneself to the simplest, most direct action. Detriment, simplicity, and directness all too often seen as inharmonic and aesthetically crude. The power of directness often offends others. Fourth line days, this is where we're going through a change from the lower trigram to the upper trigram, a change from more of an inward process to looking outward. With the themes of friendship, companionship, networking, fourth line days are great for social interaction. And then also on the 20th, Mars moves from the 31st hexagram and gate to the 33rd. Mars is in the gate of privacy, retreat, active withdrawal, and the transformation of a weak position into strength. Mars is detrimented in the first line of the 33, which is avoidance, detrimented where the courage is just plain foolishness, unable to retreat when overwhelmed by stimulation. And Ross spoke about Mars being an extraordinary and immature energy resource that lacks refinement and is subject to outbursts. Mars represents the warrior archetype in mythology, and by following our strategy and authority, we can slowly refine the energy of our design and personality Mars from immaturity to wisdom. And then on the 21st, the sun then moves into the fifth line, so into the heretical line of the 29 at 11:01 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time. Sun is exalted in the 29-5 and is described as overreach, the tendency to bite off more than one can chew. Exalted where the drive is in the design and not ambition driven. Uncontrollable drive to say yes, Fifth line days, again, we talked about, it's about projection. Projection always goes positive to negative. Positive, they could do it, the perfect person from them. And then if they don't do it, can't do it, don't want to do it, for whatever reason, they don't meet that expectation, that's when the projection turns negative. That's when people get punished. That's when the heretic is tied to the stake. So this is a day of suspicion, also of universalization, where something can spread like a virus, where it's a YouTube video or a Facebook post or just about anything. There's suspicion, but and we talked about paranoia also being associated with the fifth line, which impacts the nature of relationships. As I've said before, if they're projecting on you, if they've got an expectation of you and you're not meeting that expectation and they want to punish you, then that's not paranoia, really, is it? Seduction also being another theme of the fifth line day. And then also on the 21st, Mercury moves from the 47 to the 6 over here in the solar plexus. Bringing us another definition. And This is and also Venus is retrograde, and it moves out of the 4 and it moves into the 7, backing into the 7th gate. Let's get a little bigger one here for the 7. So it's retrograde, so it's appearing to move backwards from our perspective here on the Earth. So let's start with Mercury. Mercury is, again, mythology, is messenger of the gods. This is about communication. So Mercury in the 6th, what might be communicated when Mercury is in the 6th? Well, I expect people to talk about whether they're open or closed to intimacy. This is the gate of friction, conflict, the fundamental design component of progress, the law that growth cannot exist without friction. Mercury is detrimented in the first line of the 6th, which is retreat, the realization that wasting one's resources against overwhelming odds is not courage but folly. Detrimented, the inferiority complex, where retreat is experienced as personal weakness, emotional instability in times of conflict. And then we talked about Venus moving out of the 4 and into the 7, where it's retrograding back. It's moving backwards from our perspective here on Earth. And in human design, Venus is very powerful, deeply misunderstood according to Ra. It brings morality, values, natural law, in which we deal with the other and the consequences of the world around us. And what disturbs you on a moral level? Well, your design and personality, Venus, tell us about a moral dilemma that you're going to work with in your life, and that if you don't act with moral clarity, Venus can be unkind in its retribution. Venus is in the 7th gate of the role of the self, the army, the point of convergence by design, the need for leadership to guide and order society that engenders transference and thus influence. And being retrograde, Venus backs into the 6th line of the 7th hexagram, where it's in the line of the administrator, the ability to share and justify apportioned power, exalted, the power to communicate the framework of responsibility, the capacity of the self through its role to communicate responsibility, detrimented the bureaucrat whose lust for power eventually destabilizes the organization, the role of the self to seek power through the communication of responsibility. And with Mercury in the 6th, and we've got Jupiter in the 59, we've got the channel of mating, a design focus on reproduction until the 26th. This definition brings the energy where people will find it easier to be intimate with almost anyone, which can happen quickly, but also may be misunderstood. This is the channel of pure fertile power, as in making babies, but also birthing creative projects and processes. I'd expect this to be a time period where people may consciously or unconsciously break down barriers to intimacy and new endeavors. Using your strategy and authority will be the only way to determine if an intimate encounter is correct for you or not. And, again, we've got this defined sacral center where, where people may think they know when enough is enough, or be very busy for those non-generator types. And then we've got the defined solar plexus. The defined solar plexus will affect those who do not have emotional definition. It can bring that unfamiliar wave of emotions, and perhaps even leading to acting confrontational when that's not correct for them. And then on the 22nd, the sun then moves into the 6th line, the role model line of the 29th hexagram at 10:22 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time. The sun in the 29/6 is confusion, the state that exists when momentum outstrips awareness, exalted, driving blind with energy and determination, often blind luck. the power to persevere that makes no sense. Detriment, a tendency in confusion to withdraw rather than accept the condition and continue to persevere. The power to, in confusion, to caution rather than saying yes. And 6 lying days, again, Ra talked about not getting stuck with your head in the clouds. So it's really, people are looking beyond. They're looking at what's next, what's on the horizon, what's down the road, rather than what's happening in their immediate environment. And like 3rd line days, there can be certain dangers in not seeing a car coming, perhaps not seeing a bill coming, something that's right there at the doorstep. So no matter what the energies are that are conditioning you during the week, just remember this is an experience about being a passenger, riding in a vehicle, driven by the magnetic monopole. Enjoy the scenery. Let the vehicle take you where you need to go through using your strategy and authority. Every day is a blessing, no matter what dramas to beckon to distract us. As long as I believe we're all giving the performance of our lifetime on this world stage. So just take some time to observe the play, observe your movie, as well as acting your part, and by remembering you're a spiritual being that's having a human experience. I want to thank you for checking out New World Birth. The next segment of the weekly neutrino forecast will be for August 23rd, 2015. Should be available on the 22nd, when we will continue to look at the influence of the heavenly bodies as they transit the sky and the hexagrams of the I Ching. You can check us out on Facebook, Blogger, or YouTube, and I encourage you to share this information, whether it's as videos or as text, as widely as you choose. And I invite you to contact me at newworldbirth@yahoo.com if you have any questions or you wish to schedule a reading. And if you've been thinking about getting a reading, please contact me. I would love to provide you a reading during these uncertain times. You'll need to be able to either call me in Maine in the USA, or we can connect with Skype to receive your reading. We're also accepting donations to keep these reports freely available. And if you email me at newworldbirth@yahoo.com, I'd be happy to tell you how to make a donation or get a reading. They tend to be pretty epic. I really don't pull any punches. I don't hold back on details. I really try to tailor these readings as best I can to the person I'm giving the reading to, and make sure that they understand it in a language that makes sense to them. As always, I'm blessed that you've taken the time to connect with my passion for these ancient mysteries and their application to our journey during this incarnation. The light in me honors the light in you. Namaste, in Lakesh, and as Ra would say, love yourself. And I look forward to connecting with you in a reading, or with a question, or just in the future video. So thank you, everybody, and look forward to chatting with you next week. Peace, everyone.